In ancient Rome, one of the most infamous episodes illustrating Caligula's extravagant spending and madness involves the construction of an enormous floating bridge across the Bay of Naples. According to historians like Suetonius and Cassius Dio, this spectacle was born out of Caligula's desire to showcase his unparalleled power and authority over both the natural world and the Roman people. The emperor ordered that a series of boats be lined up side by side, anchored together to create a bridge that would span the waters. This undertaking was not simply for practical purposes. It was a grand display meant to emphasize his divine status and his belief that he could transcend ordinary human limitations. Once the bridge was completed, Caligula donned his elaborate military regalia, complete with armor and a laurel wreath, and made plans for an ostentatious parade. On the day of the crossing, he gathered a retinue of soldiers, courtiers, and loyal supporters, all of whom were instructed to cheer him on. As he stepped onto the bridge, he reportedly declared, "I can cross the water as easily as anyone walks on land," a statement that echoed his view of himself as almost godlike. The spectacle drew throngs of onlookers, some of whom were awed, while others were horrified by the sheer arrogance of their emperor. As he strutted across the bridge, Caligula allegedly encouraged his followers to applaud, reinforcing the image of himself as a figure of divine power. The bridge not only served as a physical connection between the two shores, but also as a symbol of his tyrannical rule and disconnect from the struggles of everyday Romans. While ordinary citizens faced rising taxes and economic hardship, their emperor was preoccupied with theatrical displays of might. The construction of the bridge was not without its costs, draining the imperial treasury significantly. This act of extravagance contributed to the financial difficulties that would haunt Rome during his reign. In a time when many were struggling to make ends meet, Caligula's extravagant pursuits created a chasm between him and the populace, fostering widespread discontent. This episode perfectly encapsulated the madness that characterized Caligula's rule, as he seemed more intent on theatrical displays than on effective governance. The floating bridge became emblematic of his tyranny, ultimately paving the way for resentment among the Senate and the people, and setting the stage for the conspiracy that would lead to his assassination just a few years later. Through this story, we see how Caligula's need for adulation and his erratic behavior contributed to the unraveling of his reign and the instability of the Roman Empire. One of the most chilling accounts of Caligula's paranoia involves a lavish banquet he hosted for prominent members of the Senate, a gathering that would serve as both a display of power and a demonstration of his cruelty. The date was chosen deliberately, coinciding with a Roman festival that typically brought a festive spirit, allowing Caligula to manipulate the atmosphere to his advantage. As the senators arrived, they were greeted with opulence. Grand decorations adorned the banquet hall, rich tapestries hung from the walls, and tables overflowed with exquisite dishes, roasted meats, exotic fruits, and countless varieties of wine. Caligula, dressed in his finest attire, welcomed each guest with a charismatic smile, though an unsettling glint in his eye hinted at the true nature of the evening. As the meal commenced, the initial laughter and camaraderie filled the air, but Caligula soon steered the conversation into darker territories. He recounted tales of loyalty and betrayal in the Roman political landscape, weaving stories of past leaders who had fallen victim to treachery. The senators, initially amused, began to grow uneasy as the atmosphere shifted, realizing that these tales were thinly veiled threats aimed at them. The King of Terror then raised his goblet, toasting to friendship and loyalty, a toast that felt more like a command than a gesture of goodwill. As the guests raised their glasses, their smiles were strained, a veneer of camaraderie hiding the anxiety gnawing at their hearts. The sounds of laughter echoed, but a palpable tension hung in the air, thickening with each passing moment. As the banquet continued, Caligula's mood darkened. He began to eye certain senators more intently, assessing their reactions, gauging their loyalty. Suddenly, he stood up and proclaimed, "Let us celebrate our unity with a demonstration of loyalty." His words sent a chill through the room, the guests exchanging nervous glances. Without warning, he signaled to his guards stationed just outside the hall. In an instant, several senators were seized, their shock and confusion evident as they were dragged from the table. The remaining guests watched in horror, realizing that the very act of dining with Caligula could lead to their demise. Caligula maintained his composure, casually sipping wine as the commotion unfolded. He resumed his banter, but the laughter had died. Instead, the hall was filled with the muffled sounds of panic as the guards took the senators away, the weight of impending doom hanging over those still present. Some senators pleaded silently with their eyes, their desperation palpable as they tried to avoid Caligula's gaze. As the evening progressed, the guests were compelled to continue feasting, forced to appear nonchalant while their minds raced with fear. They could hear faint cries and the sounds of struggle echoing from the shadows, a stark reminder of the fate that awaited those deemed untrustworthy. Caligula, seemingly oblivious to the terror he had unleashed, poured more wine and laughed, regaling the remaining senators with tales of past victories. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Caligula rose once more, addressing the shaken assembly. "Let this be a lesson," he declared, his voice booming. "Loyalty is the greatest virtue, and betrayal will not be tolerated." The senators nodded in fearful agreement, but their minds were racing, calculating their own chances of survival. As the evening came to an end, the remaining senators filed out of the banquet hall, their faces pale and drawn. The camaraderie that had marked the beginning of the night had dissipated, replaced by a haunting realization: the price of survival was unyielding loyalty to a tyrant who ruled through fear. Many would leave that night, knowing they had narrowly escaped a gruesome fate, but forever haunted by the chilling reminder that under Caligula's reign, no one was truly safe. Caligula's divine claims reached a pinnacle of audacity with his insistence that he be worshipped as a living god. This ambition became particularly evident when he ordered a colossal statue of himself to be erected in the Temple of Jerusalem, a site revered by the Jewish people. His desire for recognition extended beyond mere adulation. He wanted to be placed on the same pedestal as the gods of the Roman pantheon. The order to build the statue ignited outrage among the local Jewish population. They viewed it as a blatant violation of their religious beliefs and an affront to their traditions. A delegation of Jewish leaders traveled to Rome to plead for the statue's removal, arguing that their faith could not coexist with such an idolatrous demand. Caligula, however, was unyielding. He saw their protests as a challenge to his authority, viewing himself not just as a ruler but as a divine figure deserving of worship. In response to their defiance, Caligula's anger flared. He threatened severe reprisals against those who opposed him, insisting that the statue would stand and be treated with reverence. His plan included not just the physical statue, but the enforcement of rituals that would require sacrifices and offerings to him as if he were a god. This expectation created a rift not only with the Jewish community, but also with many Roman citizens who found his demands increasingly outrageous. Caligula's insistence on being worshipped led to tension with various factions within the empire. Some senators and nobles, who had initially supported him, began to question his sanity. Rumors circulated that he had gone mad, with accounts of him engaging in bizarre behaviors, such as dressing as various gods or participating in outlandish ceremonies that blurred the lines between mortal and divine. In one particularly dramatic incident, Caligula summoned a group of senators to discuss the implementation of his worship. During the meeting, he donned a laurel crown and declared that he would perform miracles, expecting his loyal followers to bow before him in reverence. The senators were taken aback, some attempting to humor him while others expressed their growing concern for the stability of the empire. As tensions mounted, resistance grew. Caligula's actions not only alienated the Jewish population, but also sowed discord among the political elite. Many began to view him as a tyrant who had lost touch with reality. His reckless pursuit of divine status ultimately led to increased dissent and plotting against him. The statue was never erected due to the backlash it provoked, but the mere proposal highlighted Caligula's descent into madness and the perilous state of his reign. His relentless need for divine recognition and the chaos it caused significantly eroded his support, setting the stage for his eventual assassination in 41 AD. This saga of divine ambition exemplifies how his desires for worship and adoration directly fueled the turmoil that ultimately contributed to his downfall, leaving a legacy marked by tyranny and excess.